Professor Zixatal flicked his third eye in annoyance as he observed the freshman class at the Galactic Military Academy. The lecture hall, filled with various species from across the known universe, buzzed with the usual pre-class chatter. Some students were still arguing about last night's zero-G ball game, while others frantically reviewed their notes on xenobiology. "Attention, you bunch of space dust!" Zixatal's voice boomed through the amphitheater, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light as he moved. "Today's lesson might just save your lives, assuming you have enough brain matter to absorb it." The class immediately fell silent. Even the Centaurian in the back row, who typically dozed through lectures, perked up all four of their sensory stalks. "Now then," Zixatal continued, activating the holographic display. "Who can tell me what this is?" The image showed a bipedal creature, relatively unimpressive by galactic standards. No extra limbs, no natural armor, no obvious defensive capabilities. A Vulpexi student raised their tail. "That's a human, Professor. A Class 12 Deathworlder from Sol 3, also known as Earth." "Correct, though I see you've been reading ahead. Show off." Zixatal's mandibles clicked in amusement. "And can anyone tell me why we're discussing these particular beings today?" The lecture hall remained silent. "No one? Well then, allow me to enlighten you with the most dreaded words in galactic military history." He paused for dramatic effect. "Next month, our forces will be conducting joint military exercises with the Human Defense Force." The reaction was immediate. Several students gasped. One methane breather in the front row actually started leaking anxiety gases, forcing the environmental systems to work overtime. "Oh, come now," Zixatal laughed, the sound like grinding crystals. "They're not that bad. They only have twice our strength, 5 times our endurance, and an absolutely insane tolerance for environmental extremes. What could possibly go wrong?" He pulled up another hologram, this one showing combat footage from the First Contact Wars. "You see, when our ancestors first encountered humans, they made the classic mistake of assuming technological superiority meant automatic victory. They failed to account for what I like to call the human factor, or, as the emergency medical units call it, the "oh no, not again" syndrome." The class nervously chuckled. Take this footage, for example. The hologram showed a human soldier continuing to fight after sustaining what should have been a debilitating injury. Normal beings would have the good sense to fall down and die when shot. Humans, they get angry. And let me tell you something about angry humans. They're like quantum particles. You can never be quite sure where they are or what they're doing, but you can be absolutely certain they're going to ruin someone's day. A tentative appendage rose from the middle of the class. "But Professor, surely with our advanced weaponry—" "Ah yes, advanced weaponry," Zixatal interrupted, his crystalline form vibrating with barely contained mirth. "Let me share a delightful story about advanced weaponry. During the Battle of Proxima, we deployed our latest neural disruptors against a human battalion. Do you know what they did? They figured out the disruption frequency and started humming to counter it. Humming! They turned one of our most sophisticated weapons into a galactic karaoke machine." The professor's expression turned serious, or as serious as a crystalline being could manage. "The point is, those of you who will be participating in next month's exercises need to understand something crucial. Humans don't follow the rules of conventional warfare because they don't follow the rules of conventional evolution. They're from a planet that tried to kill them every single day. And instead of having the courtesy to go extinct, they decided to become friends with some of their predators, turned others into food dispensers, and figured out how to harness explosions to fling themselves into space." Walking to the center of the platform, Zixatal spread his 4 arms wide. "So, my dear students, over the next few weeks, I'll be teaching you everything you need to know about not getting utterly embarrassed by our human allies. And if you're very lucky, you might even survive the experience with your dignity intact." The bell chimed, signaling the end of the class period. "For next time, read chapters 7 through 9, Why Humans Think Everything Can Be a Weapon and How They're Probably Right. And remember, the only thing more dangerous than underestimating a human is convincing them that something is impossible." Class dismissed. The grand strategy room of the Galactic Defense Force headquarters sparkled with enough medals and decorations to blind a small sun. 12 of the most decorated military commanders in the galaxy sat around a holographic table, their combined experience spanning several centuries of warfare. None of them looked particularly happy. Let me get this straight, General Vexathor rumbled, his armored plates shifting in agitation. We're supposed to lose these exercises? High Commander Pix adjusted her sensory frills. Not lose, exactly. The diplomatic corps suggests we should show restraint, make it a learning experience. Learning experience, another general scoffed, their bioluminescent patches flashing in protest. We have the most advanced fleet in 3 spiral arms. Admiral Creven, who had been quietly observing from the corner, finally spoke up. Her silver scales reflected the holographic display as she moved forward. With all due respect, that's exactly the kind of thinking that got the Rigelian fleet turned into an improvised modern art installation. Ah yes, Admiral Creven. High Commander Pix's tone dripped with artificial sweetness. Our resident human expert. Please enlighten us with your unique perspective. Crevan slithered to the holographic display and pulled up tactical data from previous human encounters. Look at these numbers. Every single species that's gone up against humans with a superiority complex has ended up writing very lengthy after-action reports, usually from medical beds. They're primitive, General Vexathor interrupted. Their ships still use chemical propulsion for backup systems. Yes, and they deliberately practice flying with those backups because, in their words, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, usually at the worst possible moment. Creven brought up more displays. They call it Murphy's Law, and they've turned paranoid preparation into an art form. The room erupted in various alien expressions of dismissal. A Quantrix general actually vibrated in frequencies expressing doubt. Fine, Crevan pulled up their battle plan. Let's examine your strategy. You're planning to disable their communications first, correct? Standard procedure, PX nodded. Cut off their command structure. They train for that extensively. They have 17 different backup communication methods, including something they call interpretive dance. A nervous chuckle rippled through the room. You think I'm joking? Third Fleet learned the hard way that humans can coordinate complex tactical maneuvers through something called charades. General Vexthor waved a heavily armored appendage. But our analysis shows clear weaknesses. They need regular sleep cycles. Ah yes, sleep. Creven's scales rippled in what might have been amusement. Let me tell you about something humans call coffee. Actually, no. Let me tell you about what happens when they run out of coffee. The Arcturus incident of 2218 started because someone forgot to resupply the human ship's coffee makers. But their environmental requirements, another general began, are surprisingly flexible, Crevan cut in. They can survive in temperatures ranging from basically frozen to why is everything on fire. They call it camping, and some do it for fun. The room fell silent as Crevan continued displaying data. Your strategy assumes they'll follow standard combat doctrine. They won't. Humans have this thing they call lateral thinking, which as far as I can tell means, what if we did something completely insane that somehow works? High Commander Pix's frills twitched in annoyance. You're being overdramatic. Your analysis shows that humans are physically weaker than Centaurians, slower than Vulpexi, and less technologically advanced than us. All true. But you're missing the point. Crevan brought up footage from previous joint exercises. They know all of this, and they don't care. They've spent their entire evolutionary history being weaker, slower, and less equipped than their predators. Their response was to invent spears, learn to run for ridiculous distances, and turn their predators into something called house cats. We've accounted for their endurance advantage, one of the generals protested weakly. Have you accounted for their ability to turn anything into a projectile weapon? Because I once saw a human defeat a combat drone with a beverage container. They called it the soda incident, and now it's part of their standard training. The room was starting to show signs of concern. Even General Vexathor's armor plates had lost some of their shine. Look, Creven softened her tone. I'm not saying we can't win. I'm saying we need to stop thinking we've already won. Humans have a saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. That's barbaric, Pix muttered. Yes, and effective, just like humans. Crevan shut down the holographic display. So either we can adapt our strategy to account for human unpredictability, or we can spend the next month explaining to the Galactic Council why the supposedly inferior humans turned our carefully planned exercise into what they call a highlight reel. As the commanders filed out, many looking significantly less confident than when they entered, High Commander Puick stopped beside Krevan. You really believe they're that dangerous? No, Krevan's scales shifted to a pattern indicating amusement. I believe they're worse, because the most dangerous thing about humans isn't their strength, their endurance, or even their creativity. It's that they're actually looking forward to these exercises. They think it's going to be fun. The High Commander's frills drooped slightly. Perhaps we should revise our strategy. Wise choice, and maybe stock up on coffee, just in case. The morning of the joint military exercise dawned bright and clear over the training grounds of Proxima 2. The Galactic Defense Force had chosen this location specifically for its controlled environment. That should have been their first warning sign. Commander Rixasha watched from the command center as their forces deployed according to the meticulously planned strategy. Holographic displays showed hundreds of units moving into position, their superior technology gleaming in the morning sun. Sir, a communications officer reported, their appendages twitching with pride. All units are in position. Human forces have not yet deployed. Excellent. Rixika's bioluminescent patches glowed with satisfaction. Begin electronic countermeasures. Let's show them what real military technology can do. The finest electronic warfare suite in the galaxy hummed to life, ready to disable any human communication attempts. Within seconds, it reported success. Sir? The same officer's voice now carried a note of confusion. The humans are singing. They're what? Singing, sir, something about 99 bottles of beer, and they're all somehow staying in perfect synchronization. Before Rixexa could respond, the tactical display lit up like a supernova. Human forces had seemingly materialized from nowhere, appearing in positions that the strategy committee had deemed tactically irrelevant or impossible to reach without anti-gravity technology. How did they get there? Rixexa demanded. Those cliffs are vertical. Apparently they climbed them, sir, with something called rope and really good grip strength. The first engagement reports started flooding in. A Centaurian fast attack squad, pride of the ground forces, had cornered a small group of humans. Victory reports were expected any second. Instead, Sir, Centaurian Squad Alpha is retreating. The video feed showed the scene. The humans, cut off from support and outnumbered, had somehow turned the situation into what they called a party game. They were picking up the massive boulders that dotted the landscape and juggling them while making jokes about gravity. That's impossible. Rixexa's exoskeleton crackled with stress. Those rocks weigh at least 300 kilos. The humans are calling it a strength training warm-up, sir. In another sector, the Volpexi stealth units had successfully surrounded a human position. They activated their advanced camouflage systems, becoming virtually invisible to any known detection method. The humans appear to be pointing at our stealth units and laughing, sir. They're saying something about thermal vision being standard issue because of something called hunting season. The tactical map was becoming a mess of red indicators showing GDF units being systematically outmaneuvered. A squad of elite quantum warriors had attempted to use their phase shift technology to bypass human defenses. Status of Quantum Squad Beta? They're stuck in a pit, sir. The humans dug traps. They're calling them hunting blinds, and apparently did it all last night while their main force was setting up something called a barbecue. Rixix's command center was now in chaos. Reports were coming in faster than they could be processed. Sir, 3rd Platoon reports the humans are using local wildlife as scouts. 4th Division is trapped in some sort of adhesive substance. The humans are calling it silly string, and apparently it's a children's toy. The Methane Brigade has been forced to retreat. The humans started something called a campfire and are now roasting small food items over it while telling ghost stories. 5th Battalion reports complete disarray after the humans initiated something called a water balloon fight. A particularly disturbing report came from the Aerial Combat Division. The GDF's finest pilots, flying craft capable of pulling maneuvers that would turn most species to paste, were being outflown by humans in what appeared to be deliberately outdated aircraft. They're doing what with their aircraft? They call it barnstorming, sir. Apparently, it's an old Earth entertainment form. They're writing messages in the sky with their exhaust trails. The latest one says, "Having fun yet?" The crowning moment came when the GDF's most advanced stealth ship, Pride of the Fleet, was captured. Not by force, not by superior technology, but because the humans had offered its crew something called home-baked cookies and invited them to something called a tailgate party. "Sir," the increasingly frazzled communications officer reported, "the crew is refusing to return. They say the cookies are too good, and the humans are teaching them something called football." In the northern sector, a specialized aquatic unit had attempted to use the local river for a surprise attack. They found the humans already there in something called inner tubes, drinking beverages and calling it a float trip. Update from Aquatic Team Charlie, sir. They've joined the float trip. Something about it being actually pretty relaxing and way better than fighting. Rick Sexer stared at the tactical display, watching as their carefully planned military exercise devolved into what the humans were now calling the best party in the quadrant. Even the meteorological warfare units had been rendered useless after the humans responded to artificial rain by organizing something called a mud run that half the GDF forces had enthusiastically joined. "Sir," the communications officer's voice had taken on a note of resignation. "Admiral Krevan is on the line. She's asking if we'd like to surrender now or wait until after the humans finish setting up something called a karaoke machine." Rick Sexer's exoskeleton sagged in defeat. Tell her we'll surrender, but first, ask the humans what these cookies are and if they're willing to share the recipe." "Already done, sir. They said, and I quote, 'Bring your own beverage. We've got enough snacks for everyone.'" The exercise had lasted exactly 3 hours and 42 minutes. The after-action report would go down in GDF history as required reading for all command staff, titled simply, "This is why fighting Deathworlders is a suicide mission, a practical demonstration." The Galactic Defense Force command center resembled what humans would call a three-ring circus, though no one present understood why humans would want to organize chaos into specific rings. "Status report," Commander Rixer demanded, though at this point it sounded more like a plea. "Well, sir," the tactical officer began, their crystalline form clouded with stress. "Remember how we thought we had superior positioning?" "Yes." "The humans are now above us, literally above us. They've somehow scaled the sheer cliff face behind the command center. They're having what they call a picnic and offering to share their sandwiches with our perimeter guards." A series of explosions rocked the northern sector, followed by bursts of colored smoke. "That's not weapons fire," the sensor operator reported, sounding bewildered. "The humans are using something called fireworks to coordinate their movements. They're calling it a rave tactical system." Across the battlefield, GDF units were discovering that their advanced combat training was essentially useless against human unconventional warfare. The Quantum Warriors, pride of the Special Forces, had been reduced to watching in horror as humans demonstrated what they called parkour. "Sir, Quantum Squad Delta is requesting immediate extraction," a communications officer reported. "The humans are moving through solid objects." "That's impossible. How?" "They're calling it finding the shortcuts and speed-running the map. They say it's something they learned from video games." The aerial combat situation wasn't any better. The GDF's sophisticated fighter screens were being outmaneuvered by human pilots who seemed to treat the laws of physics as mere suggestions. Aerial Squadron 6 reports humans are now flying upside down next to them and taking selfies. "They're what?" "Taking photographs of themselves with our pilots. They're calling it making memories, and have started a social media hashtag." The advanced stealth units weren't faring any better. Their latest report was particularly concerning. "Sir, the humans have started hunting our stealth teams for sport. They're using something called Marco Polo to locate them." "How is that even possible?" "Unknown, sir, but they're turning it into a game, and worse, our troops are starting to play along." The aquatic forces had completely given up any pretense of combat. The latest report showed them engaged in what humans called a splash fight, while learning something called the backstroke. "Update from Sector 7, sir. Our troops are now requesting swimming lessons from the humans. They say it's actually quite refreshing." The mechanized divisions weren't doing any better. The GDF's most advanced battle walkers, capable of traversing any terrain, were currently stuck in what the humans called a mud bog, and had somehow turned it into a competition. Mechanized Unit Theta reports they're now participating in something called Monster Truck Rally. They say it's way more fun than regular combat training. The Psychological Warfare Division had completely shut down after attempting to analyze human battlefield chatter. Sir, the psych team is requesting a transfer. They say trying to understand human combat jokes is damaging their professional objectivity. Even the weather control systems had betrayed them. After creating a thunderstorm to hamper human operations, they discovered the humans had started telling spooky stories and making something called s'mores. What in the galaxy is a s'more? Rixexa demanded. Some sort of ritual food involving melted sugary substances and crackers, sir. Our troops are quite enthusiastic about them. The final blow to their dignity came when the human commander sent a message to the GDF command center. It read simply, "Hey, we're starting a volleyball tournament, 2-person teams, winners get bragging rights and hot dogs. You in?" Sir, the communications officer looked at Rixexa expectantly. Several units are requesting permission to participate. They say it would be valuable cross-species training. Rixexa stared at the tactical display, watching as their carefully organized military exercise had transformed into what humans apparently called a field day. New report, sir. The humans have started teaching our troops something called dance moves. They're calling it tactical rhythm training. And our troops' response? They're enthusiastically participating, sir. The Centaurians are particularly fond of something called the robot. As if to punctuate the complete breakdown of military discipline, a group of humans had started a conga line that was somehow more effective at breaking through defensive positions than any conventional assault. Sir, the tactical officer's voice had taken on a tone of resignation. Should we continue pretending this is still a combat exercise, or should we just admit we've all been invited to what humans call a block party? Rixexa watched as another squad of their elite troops abandoned their positions to learn something called the electric slide. You know what? Send out a general broadcast. Tell all units, tell them to take notes. Clearly we have much to learn about human combat doctrine, even if it doesn't look anything like combat anymore. Already done, sir, though you should know the humans are now calling this the best team-building exercise ever and are suggesting we make it a monthly event. The command center fell silent as they contemplated this new reality. Finally, Rixexa spoke. Well, if you can't beat them, does anyone know what a hot dog is? Admiral Krevan slithered into the chaos of the command center, her scales rippling with barely contained amusement. The scene before her was exactly what she had predicted, complete with a half-eaten hot dog on Commander Rixexa's console. Having fun? She asked, causing several officers to jump guiltily. Admiral, Rixexa straightened up, trying to regain some dignity. We were just conducting a tactical analysis of human combat methods. Yes, I can see that from the party hat on your secondary sensory cluster. The command center buzzed with embarrassed movements as various officers attempted to hide evidence of their participation in human festivities. A methane breather in the corner was still trying to figure out how to eat something called a popsicle through their atmospheric suit. Well then, Krevan announced, since we've thoroughly proven that we can't beat them, let's try something revolutionary. Let's learn from them. She pulled up a new tactical display, this one showing human and GDF forces intermingling in various activities. Look here, she pointed at a group of Centaurians learning human calisthenics. They've turned their physical training into a group activity. Our troops' efficiency has increased 40% since they started these workout buddies sessions. Moving to another display, she highlighted the aerial units. Our pilots have learned 3 new evasive maneuvers by participating in what humans call aerial tag. Apparently, being chased by someone with a water balloon launcher teaches you things that combat simulators can't. The communications officer raised an appendage. But Admiral, this isn't proper military protocol. Protocol. Krevan's scales shifted to a pattern indicating enlightenment. Let me tell you what I've learned about humans and protocol. They have a saying, if it's stupid, but it works, it's not stupid. She brought up more displays showing various joint activities. These obstacle course races they've organized, our troops are learning human mobility techniques. That campfire storytelling session, they're teaching us Earth military history, but making it entertaining. Even that splash fight in the river was a lesson in adapting to unfamiliar environments. Commander Rixexer looked thoughtful. So when they invited us to play Capture the Flag, they were teaching small unit tactics, yes, and having fun doing it. That's the key we've been missing. Humans don't separate combat readiness from morale. To them, they're the same thing. The tactical officer spoke up, their crystalline form catching the light. The humans have invited us to something called a paintball tournament next week. They say it's for tactical training. Accept it, Creven ordered, and tell our troops to prepare for the most fun they'll ever have while getting shot at. As if to prove her point, a human chaplain had somehow organized an interspecies choir that was using sonic wavelengths to test defense shields while performing something called Broadway hits. Sir, a sensor operator reported, Human Command just sent over their training schedule for next month. It includes something called laser tag, dodgeball, and competitive gardening. Ah yes, Crevan nodded. They're teaching us survival skills, though I'm still not sure how the gardening fits in. It's about learning to work with local environments, a human advisor explained, appearing seemingly from nowhere and causing several officers to jump. Also, fresh vegetables make better salsa for the next cookout. The command center had transformed. Where once there were rigid battle plans and formation diagrams, now there were sign-up sheets for various human training activities. A holographic display showed the next week's schedule, which included everything from combat first aid, taught through something called zombie apocalypse scenarios, to spacecraft maintenance, combined with what humans called Pimp My Ride. Admiral, Commander Rixexer spoke carefully, I believe I owe you an apology, and possibly several humans as well. Keep the apology, Creven replied. Instead, learn this lesson. The most dangerous thing in the universe isn't superior technology or advanced tactics. It's a species that can turn anything, literally anything, into either a party or a training opportunity, sometimes both. As if to emphasize her point, cheers erupted from outside as humans began teaching GDF troops something called crowd surfing as a lesson in trust building and load distribution. Now then, Creven's scales shifted to a pattern of anticipation. I believe we have a volleyball tournament to attend. Remember, the humans said winners get something called bragging rights. And what exactly are bragging rights, Admiral? No idea, but based on how the humans value them, they must be worth winning. The command center emptied as officers rushed to join their new human friends in various training exercises. Commander Rixexer lingered behind with Admiral Crevan. You knew this would happen, didn't you? Let's just say I've learned that when humans offer to teach you something, pay attention, even if it looks like they're just playing games. Professor Zixatal stood before his class once again, his crystalline form somehow looking both more amused and more exasperated than before. The footage from the joint military exercises played behind him. So, he began, his third eye twitching with suppressed mirth, who can tell me what we learned about human combat capabilities? The entire class stared at the footage of a Centaurian battle group participating in something called a three-legged race. Anyone know? Well, then let me sum up our latest findings about our Deathworlder friends. He clicked to the next slide, showing various scenes from the exercises. First, humans don't just think outside the box, they take the box, turn it into a fort, invite you inside, and somehow teach you combat tactics while having a pillow fight. The class chuckled nervously, several students taking notes. Second, everything is a training opportunity to them, everything. The cafeteria staff reported that humans turned meal preparation into a lesson about chemical warfare safety. They called it Ghost Pepper Challenge, and 3 methane breathers are still hiccuping fire. He flicked through more slides. Third, and perhaps most importantly, humans don't just survive adversity. They weaponize fun. The joint exercises were supposed to last 3 days. They turned it into a 2-week festival of what they called team building and cultural exchange. Our forces came back with improved combat skills, 17 new game varieties, and something called a friendship bracelet. The professor pulled up the official after-action report. The Galactic Defense Force has officially revised its training protocols. All units are now required to participate in regular game nights and something called trust falls. I'm not entirely sure what those are, but apparently they're vital to human pack-bonding rituals. A student raised an appendage. Professor, Are you saying we should stop treating humans as potential adversaries? Oh heavens no, Zixtal laughed. I'm saying we should treat them as something far more dangerous. Friends who want to teach us things. Did you know they've already scheduled next month's paintball tournament? The last one resulted in 3 new defense tactics and 5 interspecies marriages. The class stirred uncomfortably. The point is, my dear students, we've been asking the wrong question. It's not how do we fight Deathworlders, it's why would we want to. They're perfectly happy to teach us everything they know through activities they call games and sports and extreme team-building exercises. He shut down the display. Final lesson, if you ever find yourself in a combat situation with humans, you have 2 options. 1, surrender and join their party. 2, prepare to be defeated by something they invented while bored at a party. The bell chimed. For next week's class, read the new chapter, Understanding Human Recreation, Why Everything is Either a Game or a Snack Opportunity. And yes, there will be practical exercises. The humans insist on teaching them personally, something about dodgeball being fundamental to understanding their combat doctrine. As the students filed out, Professor Zixtal added one final note. Oh, and bring a change of clothes. I don't know what a water balloon is, but I'm told they're essential teaching tools. He watched his students leave, many of them already checking their datapads for information about human games. His third eye twinkled with amusement. And that, he muttered to himself, is why fighting Deathworlders is a suicide mission. They'll either defeat you or befriend you, and honestly, I'm not sure which is more dangerous.